Thank you, Isna. We will be here from the side of the news where everything is happening. We wanted to bring you to their field to learn everything about land grabbing. Today we will have special reports for you. The United Nations and other organizations are bringing massive investments to different countries, but NGOs and civil society says this is neo-colonization. They can't take their lands now. Sierra Leone and Paraguay will show us dramatic cases about it, and we will have a judge and experts telling us about this. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Você é assim, um sonho pra mim. E quando eu não te vejo, eu penso em você desde o amanhecer até quando eu me deito. Eu gosto de você e gosto de ficar com você. Meu riso é tão feliz contigo. O meu melhor amigo é o meu amor.
So one of the biggest problems from the intrusion of investment to developing countries is the gender disempowerment. So here I would like to interview Mabinti, one of the local people in Sierra Leone who is a victim of the investment of bioenergy. So hi Mabinti, do you have an opportunity or capacity to reject or accept the investment?
No, I don't have any authority of that, because basically the one who's go to the meeting is the representative, but it's all men.
Okay, why can't you go to the meeting?
Because I'm a married woman and I have 5 children at home, so my husband wouldn't let me go to the meeting.
But do you know what the meeting is all about, and do you know what the company is?
Just a little knowledge of that, but no, we don't know anything about the company.
Okay, so that's how it is depicted, how women has no say here. So now I'm reporting from kilometer 16 in Paraguay with Sauhoyamaxa people who has been forced to live here for 8 years in the road. So, hi Maria.
Hi.
Why did you choose to live in this road?
We didn't choose to live on this road. We just don't have any place to go. This is our land. Our parents, grandparents grew here. We also grew up here, and our families or relatives are buried here. We have our cemeteries here, and we don't know any other place. We have no money to go elsewhere, and we have no money, and people will die here. My child was born here, but also children have died here.
Why didn't you go to the hospital?
We don't have money to go to hospital. It's far from here, and if we happen to get some money, we go there and they say, where are your IDs? And we don't have IDs. They never ask for our names. We are not registered anywhere, and we don't have access to doctors for this. And if doctors see us, they will give us prescriptions, but we don't have money for medication. We are very poor people.
Okay, so why don't you claim your right at the first time when the investors came?
The government says that we cannot be here because they promised these lands to German and UK investors, and now they say we don't have the right, even though we were here always.
Thank you for joining me. I'm from Indonesian Center for Environmental Law, currently representing 52 indigenous peoples here in Indonesia, which we believe has similar problem with other indigenous peoples in developing countries with regards to land grabbing. There are 4 main problems that we would like to address. The first is the ingenuine reason for investors to come to seize the land is more on to feed their own greed rather than development. in the developing countries itself. The second one is the map that is showing the underutilized land, which sizable is not depicting the real fact that there are already people there work and cultivated the land. The third one is the way the indigenous people see the land is way different because they consider it as common property. No one can own it. It's way different with private ownership concepts. And the last one is no free and prior informed consent has been conducted properly. This is just a continuation of what John Locke says as once people considered as cannot utilize the land properly, then the other can expropriate it. Thank you.
I think we got a wrong accusation from the NGO because we have a standard operation procedure that we do the free prior informed consent before we invest into a country. We make a meeting, we conduct a meeting which required a representative from a village, and we also included women in there, so there would be no gender bias, so they would know what the project is, what the company is, and to make sure that we bring the development into the country. That's our main focal point, to invest something in the country. And if there's any human rights concern, we can go to the state, as the state that have obligations toward the people's protection from the country itself.
Thank you for joining us and thank you for your expertise. I will start with Professor Fatmata Kabia.
Yes.
What are the effects of these investments in reality?
Yes, in reality, it's rarely got into win-win situation for the investor and for the states. With our study conduct, it reveals that the promise of agricultural value is actually result in devastating consequences for the local communities. For example, the local farmer got affected from their own land. And can you imagine that actually in that case, it is less than 12% of the acquired land is put under production.
It's quite striking that from financial investment, only 12% is put into production. What do you think, Professor Amnon Lehavi? Do different systems interact here?
Yes, for sure. It's an interaction between customer law and national construct. Usually customer law is undermined. And in my research, I also depict there are 5 other realms. So the other one is supranational constitutionalism, for instance, the verdicts by the Inter-American Courts of Human Rights, which also influence the national law. And then also we have, particularly in EU, the positive and negative harmonizations. And also most importantly is the bilateral investment treaties, which can, in some case, bring the state before the arbitration court.
Professor Kabia, what is the relationship between these systems?
Just like Amnon said, that actually yes, customary law have a tendency that it is being undermined under the national law itself. So we need the international law to strengthen it. We need the international law to reinforce the customary land rights, but we have to make sure that it is not changing the fundamental characteristic of African customary land law itself.
Thank you very much. We're running out of time. Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. Well, my research is also in line with the research of Professor McMichael, and we are particularly interested in how social movements resist the land grabbing phenomenon. So what we see in Latin America, for example, is, but also in many other places, peasants and indigenous communities and rural communities are really trying to claim the right to biodiversity, to exchange their own seeds, to keep their lands, to have an emotional and spiritual relationship with them, because this is not only the place where they work, this is their entire life. So the Via Campesina movement is a peasants movement, agricultural communities that have decided to claim for their right to diverse species, to different varieties of a number of products, and we think that this is also something that law should take into account. Well, thank you for inviting me to your program. I am very happy that we, as judges of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, can tell you the background of our decision. First of all, how can we explain the suffering and the deaths of 31 children? We think that there were legislative measures in the country, but they were not effective, and these people did not really have access to land, medical services, education, and the most basic human needs. Their claim for territorial rights has been pending since 1991, and they have been living literally on the road, living, being born and dead there. We need to consider that the notion of ownership that these peoples have is different from the classic concept of property, but deserves equal protection. And we also consider that the enforcement of bilateral investment agreements cannot be at the expense of human rights obligations from the states. Now, we have no doubt, based on the evidence of the case, that Paraguay violated the right to life of this community because they deprived it access to their traditional lands. They did not ensure these people could have access to food, and they also gave very insufficient public services like sanitation or potable water, drinking water. We think there is enough proof, and we have condemned the state for that reason. Thank you.